Hello, my name is Myra, and for today's video I wanted to go ahead and talk about my favorite books of the year, as well as do a little mini book haul because I have bought a few books and then I got some more for Christmas, so I want to go ahead and share those. Now, I, like a lot of other people, cannot believe that the year is over. My boyfriend and I were literally just talking about this yesterday and the day before as we were spending time with our families for Christmas, that it felt like it had just been like 5 months ago that we had gotten together to celebrate Christmas. So it's pretty wild, but I think the message, or like the point that we got from that, is just the importance of making the best use of our time and making sure that we are spending our time with people that we love and care about, and doing what we love and care about, and trying the things that we want to try, and just making the most out of life. So that's pretty much what I got from it. I really hope that maybe if you've been kind of like freaking out about it, maybe you'll see it that way and just kind of see it as, you know what, the year is over. However, I'm going to be more conscious of my time, and let me check and analyze how I'm spending my time and who I'm spending my time with. So that's the way that I'm choosing to look at it, just so I don't freak out about the fact that a whole year came and went, and yeah, things were crazy. But anyway, I'm gonna first go ahead and jump into the mini book haul. Well, it's not that mini actually. Now when I was looking at all the books, I was like, wow, okay, it's actually a lot more books than I thought. First, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the books that I recently bought myself, and then I'll go over my Christmas gifts. Now, first I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. He has a Netflix special all about being smarter with your money. My mom has been like telling me and my siblings to watch it, and honestly I really want to become more financially literate, and so I've decided to get this book for myself, just to kind of, you know, learn and get myself going. Next, I got myself the From Blood and Ash book. I got this edition. I don't think it's a special edition. I think it's just like the one that's come out. I've heard very mixed things about this book. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people really like it. I'm interested in for my own opinion, so we'll see how that goes. My sister-in-law actually randomly gave me this, I think like November. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was last month. A Little Life by Hanya. I don't want to butcher the name, so I'm not going to say it, but A Little Life. She said that she saw it all over TikTok and she wanted to have me read it. I do want to read this. I have heard, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, that it is pretty emotional, and it's a little bit heavy. So I'm trying to just be in like the right mindset to read it, but I'm definitely very grateful that she got me this book, and very excited to dive in and see what it's all about and why it's all over TikTok. The next book that I got is actually The 7-Year Slip. A lot of my favorite booktubers that I myself watch have read this book this year and recommended it. I saw that it was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I've just heard that it's a really good book. And it's actually not that big. I mean, in my opinion, this actually looks pretty small. So I'm excited to dive into this book as well and see what all the like hype is about. And then last but not least, I actually just got myself the first 2 books in the Sarah J. Maas Throne of Glass series. I got myself Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass. I am going to be diving into this. Basically, all of January, I think, is going to be Sarah J. Maas. And then I need to read Crescent City and stuff. So yeah, so I'm very excited to dive into these in January. Okay, so next I'm gonna go ahead and go over all the books that I got for Christmas. So my little sister was kind enough to get me Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I've only read The Love Hypothesis. I actually listened to it on Audible, and I really liked it. I was laughing out loud at some point, like parts of the book. And so I'm really excited to read this because I have not read it before. And then my other sister, she got me for Secret Santa. We do a Secret Santa with all the adults, and she actually picked up Bloody Heart by Sophie Lark and Savage Lover, also by Sophie Lark. These are part of the Brutal Birthright series. I have Stolen Heir and Brutal Prince. Yes, Brutal Prince and Stolen Heir. I did not have these 2 books, so I was very excited. These are some of the books that I actually really want to reread, and in the back here actually you can see the whole series. So yeah, Sophie Lark is like, I love her books. Like, her books can just do no wrong for me. So I'm excited to have these. I want to read them and annotate them. I have already read them on Kindle Unlimited. That's actually where I do most of my reading. But I've started to kind of build my own little collection just with books that I've read that I love, and books that I want to own, and books specifically that I also want to annotate. So that's what these two will be for, and I'm so excited. And then last but not least, actually this is not last, I am tripping, but my boyfriend got me a bunch of books for Christmas. Like, he knows that I love reading. It's not a secret. My friends, my family know that I love reading. And so he actually picked up There Are No Saints and There Is No Devil, also by Sophie Lark. I have not read these two books. I've heard a lot of great things. And again, Sophie Lark, she's pretty much like an auto read author for me. Like, anything that she comes out with, I will be reading. So I'm excited to read these two books. They are a duet. That's all I really know. I can't really remember exactly what they're about. I just know that I've heard really good things about them. So I'm excited to read them, and I'm so glad he got them for me. And also the fact that they're black and white, like, I don't know, they're just so clean. Like, they're so pretty to look at, I feel. And it also gives me like Taylor Swift Reputation vibes. I don't know. Love it. And then he was a sweetheart and got me the rest of the books in the Throne of Glass series. Now, as I was opening the books that he got me, he was like, I need to tell you something. I missed one of the books. He's like, for some reason, I thought you had the first 3 books, not the first 2 books. So the book that's missing is, let me see, Crown of Midnight. That's the book that's missing. But I got like Barnes & Noble gift cards and Target gift cards also for Christmas, so I will be using those to buy that book. But other than that, I mean, he got me everything else, and I mean, books are so expensive, so like the fact that he got me this, I'm like, you're the best. Like, this is awesome. So I was very, very happy. But those are all the books that I got for Christmas. Okay, so now I want to talk about all the books that I've read this year that I've loved. I liked a lot of books, but I really was trying to narrow it down by my favorites of every month. I was initially going to do 12 books, but there were some months where I read really, really good books, and it was like 3 or 4 that were like, I have to mention these. So it's not 12 and it's not 10, but it's pretty, like, it's a pretty narrowed down list. For the most part, every month is like 1 book. There are a few months that have 2 or 3 books. So yeah. Okay, now starting off with January, one of them was The Lie by Carla Sorensen, and this is between Dominic and Faith. So in this book, you pretty much have like a pen pal romance, except they meet in real life and they have no idea that they're each other's pen pal. You do find that out at the very, very beginning of the book, so it's not really a spoiler. Now, Dominic is a professional football player. He does not have the best reputation. He actually has a reputation of being like a rebel, and not necessarily in the best way. He is known as kind of like arguing with coaches, fighting with team player or like other teammates. He's also known as being kind of selfish and like a little bit of like a ball hog, where he wants himself to look good, but he's not really thinking about the team, which is a big issue, especially when you're playing professional football. Now, he actually ends up getting traded to this new team, where he ends up getting in trouble on like the very, very first day, and the owner of the team, she actually assigns him to work with one of their foundations. Her daughter, the owner's daughter, is Faith, and she's actually the one who coordinates a lot of the fundraising that they do. And so she tells Dominic, you know what, you're gonna work with my daughter Faith, and you have to report yourself to this. It's a mandatory, it's basically mandatory community service to be doing with our foundation, and you better make sure that you're making us look good, because like this is something that's like near and dear to our hearts. Now, Faith is very protective about the foundations because she runs them, she spends time with these kids, and she doesn't want someone to just come in and like mess things up with her. So she's very skeptical about spending time with Dominic. She knows that he has a bad reputation. They haven't met at like the best time. He hasn't made the best first impression. And like I said, they do eventually find out that they're each other's pen pals. And so that's kind of where the romance goes from there. But it was a great book, and honestly, Dominic is very misunderstood. There's a lot of things that he's gone through that people don't really understand and know about him, which is why he has his reputation, and it's really just because he's so closed off, because he is dealing with so much stuff, and he still has a lot of pain about stuff that he's been through. Now, honorable mentions are In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This, if you've read Love Light Farm, In the Weeds is actually book 3 or book 2. I can't remember. It's either 2 or 3, but I really like it. This one, it's like second chance romance kind of, but they don't have like a ton of history, so that's as much as I'll say for that one. And then I also have Baby and the Late Night Howlers. This was my very first Omegaverse book, so there's a little bit of plot, it's a lot of smut, but I actually really liked it. I feel like it was such a like cozy little read, and like she is pretty much getting spoiled by all these like, you know, by all these alphas, and she's the Omega, and Omegas are really valuable. Obviously, like Omegaverse, alphas want Omegas, they need Omegas, but Omegas also need alphas. And so it was just like a really sweet romance. There is some plot, so it's not like there's no plot at all, but it's pretty heavy on the smut. But I really liked it because it was my first like dip in the pool of Omegaverse, and I came out very happy. Now for February, I actually have The Rebel by Sophie Lark. This is part of the Kingmaker series. It is book 2 in the Kingmakers, and it's with Zoe and Miles. Now this is a forbidden romance book. It is regarding mafia. And just to kind of briefly touch on Kingmakers, basically Kingmakers is Kingmakers Academy, and it is an academy, picture Hogwarts, which is like a boarding school except for mafia kids from around the world. So it's not a high school, it's a college, and you have all these like 18 to 22-year-olds going to this academy, and they're basically there for the whole school year learning how to run, you know, the family business essentially. And so this one, like I said, it's between Zoe and Miles, and Zoe is engaged to son of like a very powerful mafia family, and Miles comes from a completely different mafia family. It's actually the son of one of the couples in the Brutal Birthright series, also by Sophie Lark, and Miles is just captivated by Zoe. Zoe is very quiet though. She's very like head down, studious. Miles is like this huge rebel. He is very much a hustler. Like he's trying to like make money in the school. He's trying to have the connections to like basically trade people like for favors or for things that he knows is going to be valuable later on. So he's already thinking big picture. But Miles ends up being completely captivated by Zoe, and even though it's forbidden and Zoe is engaged to this guy who's actually kind of like, I don't know, he's missing a few cables in his head, if you get what I'm saying. They start to kind of build a connection, which is not okay, and it's definitely gonna become a problem. But Miles is determined to have the woman that he loves, and that's their story here. Such a good book. Loved it, 5 out of 5. Now, it was no surprise that I continued reading the series, and so for March I actually have 2 books. I have a hard time trying to decide which one I like the most. So book 3 is The Bully, and book 4 is The Spy. The Spy was actually supposed to be the very last book in the series. However, Sophie Lark ended up releasing The Savage, which is the 5th and last book of the series. Now, I don't want to go into details with this one because it is the 4th book and it was supposed to be the last one, and there's like so many plot twists, like so many things come to light. This one is like action packed, and I really loved it. This one is probably my favorite, but a very close second is The Bully. So The Bully is between Kat and Dean. So Kat is Zoe's sister from The Rebel, and Dean is the bully. He has been the bully since book 1. And again, this is book 3. I do feel like he redeemed himself in this one. He's still hard to like, you can say, and it definitely takes a while before he becomes a likable character, but it definitely is a bully romance. If you like bully romance, I would say read this one. I had never really read bully romances, but I felt like this one was still light enough that it wasn't like too bully, if that makes sense, because I've heard of other bully romances that are very, very dark. I personally didn't think that it was, but you can definitely still check your triggers. And again, The Spy, it wraps up the series beautifully, even though The Savage does come out after. There's so many things that happen in here, and it's so interesting that I don't want to tell you who it is, what the couples are, what goes on, but I recommend it. Go into it blind if you do read this series. If you haven't read it, go into it blind, but I loved it. 5 stars for sure. Now in April, I stayed on my Mafia kick and I ended up reading the Queens and Monsters series by J.T. Geisinger. However, my favorite was hands down, like definitely, Broken Vows. Broken Vows is between Spider and Raina. Now, I don't want to go too much into Spider's story, but just know that he's on book 2, 3, and then the 4th book is finally his book. And so you have been rooting for Spider. He is such a likable character. He's a likable hero. He's very respectful of women, and he's also very good looking. And he is like the second in command of the Irish mob. Now, Raina is in the Italian mafia, and now her niece actually becomes like, it becomes an arranged marriage of sorts, where you have Spider going to marry Lily, which is Raina's niece. Now, some stuff goes down that I don't want to go into details, but basically she's no longer able to marry Spider. So now Spider, aka Homer, that's his real name, he still needs a bride, and it's supposed to be this arranged marriage between the Irish mafia and the Italian or the Irish mob and the Italian mafia. And so the next possible candidate is Raina. Now, he actually had been attracted to Raina since the very first moment that he saw her. However, he was trying to do his like due diligence of just being like, you know what, I'm doing this for my Dawn. I'm gonna go ahead and marry Lily. Even though he has basically zero attraction to Lily. She's described as like this pretty girl, but he's attracted to Raina, who's like this beautiful woman who clearly despises him, and that just makes her more intriguing to him, because he's kind of like, why does she hate me so much? And like, let me try to get under her skin. And he just enjoys pushing her buttons. And all of a sudden now he's forced to marry her. And so it is an arranged marriage. However, he is very, very happy with the result. And you also find out a lot about Raina, because Raina is a widow, and you find out a lot about her history, what she went through in her previous marriage. And it's just like, it's such a beautiful book. And I was so happy. Like, again, if you read this series, by the time that you get to Spider's book, you're like, yes, like he is getting his happily ever after. And it's such a good book, such a good mafia series. A 10 out of 10 recommend. If you haven't read it, please pick it up and let me know what you think of Broken Vows if you do. Now, next in May, I went ahead and read Unfurl by Elodie Hart. Now, this is part of like an adult activity club trilogy. So there are 3 books in this series, Unfurl being the first one. So Unfurl has to do with Raph and Belle. Belle is this woman who has come up with like a very religious household. She's in her early 20s though, and she still has her V card. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, she wants to you know, kind of expand her knowledge and no longer hold her V card. And so she's trying to, like, she doesn't just want to like go and like do it. However, like, she really wants to have control of the situation, and she ends up finding out about Unfurl, or the Unfurl program that is part of this adult activity club. Now, this Unfurl program basically has to do with people that are either, you know, with their V card or have very little to no experience participating in adult activities. And so she ends up looking into it and decides, you know what, this actually seems like a perfect way for me to embrace my sexuality, lose my V card, and be in complete control of my situation in a very safe way. And so she actually though ends up finding out that her neighbor, or actually her parents' neighbors, is Raph, which is one of the owners of this club. Now, she is spending her time at her parents' home because she's watching it over the summer while her parents go and travel abroad. And so they are having a lot of interactions, and she ends up asking him more about the program, and he helps her, you know, sign up with the program. However, he is very interested in her, and he's like, listen, I am going to be a very active participant in her journey through this club and I want to be there. I want to be present. Like, and his other like co-owners are like, I don't know if that's really a good idea because you seem a little bit like too invested in her specific program. But he's like, try to stop me. Like, good luck trying to stop me because I'm going to be there and I don't care. So it is their romance, and it is an age gap. He is a little bit older than her, but it is beautiful. And she's so mature, and Lady Heart's writing too is just beautiful. Love this book. If you haven't picked it up, definitely check it out. Now for June, I actually have 2 books, but they are by the same author. So honestly, I think it just tells you something about this particular author. And these are both by Karina Halle. I have The Forbidden Man and My Life in Shambles. So The Forbidden Man follows Talia. Talia is a 40-year-old therapist, a sports therapist, so she deals with a lot of athletes, and she's currently going through a very messy and public divorce. She was married to the head coach of her football team or soccer team that she was therapist on, and it came to light that he was very unfaithful with multiple women. And so now she doesn't have a job, she is losing her husband, and the media and everyone around her knows that her husband was unfaithful to her. So she decides, I need to find a new team, I need to move, and I need to just restart my life all over again from scratch. And so she ends up interviewing at a few places where she's having a little bit of difficulty finding a place because she is a woman. And unfortunately in the soccer industry, there's still a lot of it's very misogynistic still. And so she luckily ends up finding a spot with a team in Spain. And so she moves from England to Spain to start her new job as a physical therapist. Now there she quickly meets Alejo, which is a 23-year-old soccer star. He is like the star of this new soccer team that she's going to be working for. And he's very attractive, but she is like, first of all, I just went through a very public divorce. I am not trying to get involved with anyone. Second of all, I just moved. I'm trying to start my life over. I'm trying to get my things together. And third of all, I am not going to get involved with someone that I work for ever again. Now, unfortunately, after some time of them working together, and Alejo is very, very flirty with Talia, Alejo actually ends up getting hurt. And so she ends up being put as a person to be managing his care and to basically get him healed as quickly and safely as possible to get him back into the field. And so Talia and Alejo end up spending a lot of time together, and Alejo makes it very known that he is very, very attracted to her, but she has her reservations, again, because of her history and also now because of the age gap, because again, she's in her 40s and he's 23, and she's thinking, you need to spend time with someone your age. And he says, well, no, because I want to be with you. And that is their romance. Alejo was very, very mature. I had some reservations going into it being reverse age gap. However, I was very pleasantly surprised and I loved it. The second book, like I said, also for June, was My Life in Shambles. I loved this book. It's basically a heroine who has broken up with her fiance. She's looking, and she also gets laid off, and she's looking to just go into new adventures and try to figure things out. And her sisters had planned this trip to Ireland, and they tell her, well, then come with us. You weren't gonna come because you had to work, and now because you got laid off, you don't have a job, so just come with us. So she ends up going with them to Ireland, and they're at this pub spending the new year, and she ends up seeing Patrick from like across the bar, and he is constantly getting hit on by people, and the sisters are like, you know what, why don't you go talk to him? And she's like, no. He's saying no to a bunch of people, and they're like, who cares? You said you were gonna say yes to new adventure, so just go and give it a try. Now they end up hitting it off, and they end up spending like pretty much the rest of the night together. Now they do hook up very early on, and it does start off with a one-night stand. However, it is done in such a very smart and beautiful way that you're still intrigued. Like, it doesn't feel like they went backwards, you know, because even though the romance comes after, they already have this very deep connection from the very beginning, before the one night stand. And so I really, really enjoyed this book. Now it starts as a one night stand, but they end up spending more time together because Patrick ends up asking her to be his fake fiance, because he does have a father who is pretty much on his deathbed, and he wants to bring her to his small town and just say, hey, you know what, like, I'm gonna be okay. I have a fiance and it's, you know, it's all gonna work out. However, Patrick is going through some stuff that Valerie doesn't know about. And so it's a very like deep and emotional book. I especially connected to this book, I think, because I was randomly diagnosed with epilepsy. I'm someone that has epilepsy. Epilepsy is a seizure disorder, in case you don't know. And it was randomly sprung upon me when I was a teenager, and it caused a lot of things, a lot of like why me, a lot of insecurities, a lot of frustrations over basically not having control of your body, and there being no cure for epilepsy. And even though it's not epilepsy that happens in this book, there are similar themes in there. There's similar frustrations in there, and I definitely related, and I think that that's why I really, really like this book. But I definitely recommend it. My Life in Shambles, 10 out of 10. Okay, now in July, I mean, July stands for Leo season. It stands for my birthday month, but it also stands for one of the most, I think, talked about books, or at least the book that I kept saying everywhere. Wrong one. I read Fourth Wing in July and I absolutely loved it. Now, very quickly, Fourth Wing, if you haven't heard what it's about, I honestly can't believe that you haven't, but I will tell you. It has to do with dragons and a war college. So Violet is the heroine, and she is going to be a scribe, which is essentially a historian, and she ends up being told, nope, just kidding, you're actually going to try to become a dragon rider. Now they have to go through a lot of trials and a lot of things, and basically try to evade death every single day that they're at this college, to then hopefully become dragon riders, because a dragon still has to essentially choose you and deem you worthy of being a dragon rider. So it does follow Violet on this quest to become a dragon rider. You meet Xaden along the way. Xaden, so sexy, such a great, like, up there with like top book boyfriends of the year for sure. But yeah, it's a really good read. Again, if you haven't heard about it, I don't know where you've been, but yeah. Fourth Wing, hands down, a favorite in July. But what Fourth Wing actually ended up doing is it started kicking off this whole fantasy thing for me, where I was like, ooh, I really liked this. What else can I find that is similar to this? And I ended up finding, if you don't know, I'm gonna give you a chance to try to figure it out. But let me grab the book while you think about it. ACOTAR. Most specifically, my other very, very favorite is A Court of Mist and Fury. Rhys, honestly, I think, no, I know. Rhys is definitely like the top book boyfriend of the year. I think definitely he has like the #1 spot. I loved Rhys so much. If you haven't read ACOTAR, again, I don't know where you've been. I don't know where I've been, because I know that this series came out a few years ago. I think this one, let me see, when did this one get published? I want to say it was, yeah, 2016. This came out in 2016. So where I've been these past 7 years, apparently under a rock. Like, that's clearly where I've been. But I loved ACOTAR. Well, A Court of Thorns and Roses, it was good, but I mean, this book was just my favorite. Rhys, like, some of the quotes and some of the things on here, I'm just like, there's so many tattoos that I've thought of getting just because of this book alone and this series alone. So it's definitely a favorite for July. Now, of course, I started that in July. I wasn't just gonna like read one book, take a break, and then go into the next ones. No. July and the rest of August pretty much consisted of me just binge reading the whole series. And so my August favorite was A Court of Silver Flames. Now, this has to do with Nesta specifically, so it's very, very heavy on her character. And Nesta is someone that is pretty hated, honestly. Like, she's a jerk. Like, to say it nicely, she's a jerk. She's a jerk to her sister. She's a jerk to everybody else around, except for, what's the other sister? Oh my gosh. Elaine. Yes, except for Elaine. Nesta's super nice to Elaine. Other than that, she treats everybody, I mean, literally like crap. Like, yeah. And this is a big chunky book, but I actually really, really liked it. I feel like there's some people that I saw that they were like, oh, I still like she still didn't redeem herself, blah, blah, blah. I actually really like how Sarah J Maas did it, because I feel like it could have been very easy to make her like super, super likable, but she did it in a way instead where you start to like her little by little. Not really like her, maybe more like tolerate her little by little. And that's like as a reader, but I think even like some of the characters here, they start to make like, she becomes like tolerable, but she's still someone that they're like, I'm gonna keep you at a distance. Whereas there's other people in this book that are like getting this whole other side of her and really seeing the side that people that really know her don't get to see, and they see her as like this fierce, awesome, nice woman, which is totally different from everybody else, including the reader. Because if you've been reading the series, you're like, oh, nice. No, she's not. Like, she's not nice. And I actually really like that about her. I like that she's not nice. I like that she's different and she knows what she wants and she says what she says. And yeah, I don't know, I think I related to her a lot. Like, in some ways I was like, I get it. Like, maybe sometimes people don't like what you have to say, but it's what you need to say, so oh well, you know. But yeah, 5-star. Read it, loved it. Yeah. Now in September, I actually ended up getting into my cowboy romance thing, and I discovered Elsie Silver, but definitely my favorite was Heartless. And this has to do with Cade and Willa. So Cade is this grumpy single father who needs a babysitter for his 5-year-old son, and the heroine from the first book ends up recommending Willa, which is her best friend, to come and babysit. Now Willa needs the extra cash, and she figures, well, why not? If I come and I babysit, I'm gonna be a live-in nanny, and I can also spend some time with my best friend, which again is the heroine from book 1. And so she ends up moving over to the town. Now Willa is like super outspoken. Like, I loved her character. Like, she's just very outspoken, she's very sure of herself. And Cade is like the complete opposite. He's so grumpy, and she just like enjoys and gets a kick out of getting like pushing his buttons and stuff. And I loved it. It was such a good book. I love the whole series, but this one is definitely my favorite. In October, I had a lot of favorites, or I should say I had 3 favorites, so I will just honorably mention them first. So I had Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. If you haven't heard of it, look into it. I loved it. I have When She Falls, which is Hema and Raz's book. So this is by Gabrielle Sands, and I feel like this Mafia series does not get enough like credit, or like you don't have enough people talking about it, but I will go over it a little bit more. I'm gonna make a new like Mafia romance recommendations, and I will go over this book on there, but it was so good. But definitely my favorite for October was King of Greed by Ana Huang. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, it's the Kings of Sin book 3 series. Book 1 and 2, they were just okay for me. Book 1, Vivian, which is the heroine, she was kind of getting a little bit on my nerves, I'm not gonna lie. And then the romance just kind of felt like, I don't know, it still kind of felt very business transaction-y for me. It didn't feel like very romantic. Then book 2, I liked it, it was okay, but again, nothing super crazy. But King of Greed, loved it. I loved King of Greed. This is a marriage and trouble romance, and you are following Dante and Alessandra. Now they have been married for 10 years. They love each other very much. However, Dante has gotten basically sucked into the whole like hamster wheel of like trying to make more and more money, and like, I made money, but how can I make more, and how can I this, and how can I that? So he's very focused. Now at the beginning, Alessandra really supported him because she understands that they both came from nothing. He specifically came from nothing. He wanted to like build his own wealth, and so she's been super supportive of his goals over the years. However, she's kind of like, okay, you're a billionaire now, and you are still not happy with the amount of money that you have, and now because of that, you've also neglected me. And so she is basically giving him a chance to redeem himself by being there and celebrating their wedding anniversary, which she's thinking, you know what, it's 10 years, and maybe now he can actually, like, this could be like a turning page for both of us. And he misses the dinner, and so she is like, okay, that was the last straw. So she leaves, and when Dante comes home thinking, you know what, babe, I'm so sorry that I missed dinner, he ends up finding that he is walking into an empty house because Alessandra has left. And not only has she left, but now she's asking him for a divorce. And he is like, how is this happening? Like, I don't want to lose my wife. Like, how did I let this happen? And there is a ton of groveling. I loved it. Like, I loved it. She made him work for it, because she was like, I'm not gonna believe you anymore because you've said all these things. There's so many broken promises, so many missed dates, missed dinners, missed this. And he is like, I'm so sorry. And he's just groveling and he's just after her over and over. And I got this special edition because it's so beautiful. I mean, look at this. So nice. I am going to annotate this book. I really loved it. I recommend it. Even if you didn't like the first 2 books and you've or the first book and you gave up, read this one. It's so good. So good. Now we're almost done. In November, I did read Iron Flame. Now, I did not like it as much as Fourth Wing. However, I still really liked it. I will still be reading this series, but this was a book that, again, it was a 4-star. It was not a 5-star for me, but it's a series that I'm still very invested in reading, and I will still be reading book 3. I'm hoping book 3 will come out maybe at the end of 2024. I'm hoping, I don't know. But yeah, I think this one was just really info dumpy, so it had a lot of information, but I'm hoping that maybe this is a necessary information for the rest of the series, and maybe book 3 will like pick it back up. But it was still a solid read. Now, my favorite though, my other favorite in November was Lessons in Corruption, which is another reverse age gap romance. However, it is a student-teacher forbidden romance. So you do have a king, and is her name Cressida? I think her name is Cressida. I suck at names, honestly. But yeah, it is their romance, and it's by Gianna Darling. She has, I think, 5 or 6 other books in the series. They're all age gap from what I know. But this one, I will definitely be reading it. If you want a little bit more information, I do have it on my November wrap up, but I really like this book. Lastly, for December, I do have a few favorites, but I'm only going to mention the name because I will be doing a December reading wrap up, and I'll go into details there. But I have Unveil by Elodie Hart. Such a good book. It's the 3rd book in the series, the Alchemy series. And then I have When She Loves by Cleo and Raphael. This is the 4th and last book in the Fallen series by Gabrielle Sands, which is a mafia romance. And again, I'm also going to talk about this in a new mafia romance recommendation video that I will be making. And then last but not least, I have Wreck My Plans by Jillian Meadows. I loved it. It was such a cute and like perfect Christmas read, or like holiday read. I read this, I think it was the 2nd like Christmassy book that I read in December, and I really enjoyed it. It has to do with like a brother's best friend romance, and yeah, it was really good. But again, I'm not going to go into details because I will be talking about that in my December wrap up. But if you're still here, thank you so much for watching this video. If any of these books sound interesting, or at least they intrigued you enough to give them a chance, please comment below what that book will be. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around. Bye.